And I spoke with the Treasurer, Josh Frydenberg, just after today's package was announced. Treasurer, thank you for joining the latest again. I think we now have a real sense of the scale of the financial crisis that we're facing in what you announced late today. 6 million people eligible, $130 billion, $1,500 a fortnight. But explain this. So the payments delivered directly to the employer, not the employee. Why and what will that guarantee?
Well, we've sought to use the existing tax system and linking it in with employers' payrolls, and this is the most efficient and effective way to deliver that money to those employees. It's also critically important, Michael, that we maintain that formal connection between the employer and the employee, because we want to reach that point after the coronavirus where these businesses can reopen and get back to where they were prior to this crisis. And by having those employers and those employees formally linked, that will make it much easier to do.
So it's salary, it's not welfare. Employees don't have to deal with Centrelink. Is that a key point?
It's absolutely a critical point, and maintaining this relationship between the employer and employee is going to be really important. It's also a major psychological boost for millions of workers across the country. They know that they will get to the other side of this, and even better still, to be linked to their employer where they can continue to earn the income that they were previously. And at $1,500 a fortnight and about 70% of the median wage, or in some sectors like retail or hospitality or tourism, it could be actually a replacement wage in full as to what they were getting prior to the coronavirus. This will be really important relief for so many Australians.
What if you're already sacked, Treasurer? What happens to you?
Well, if you're already retrenched, but you were on the books on the 1st of March, then you should talk to your employer, because for the employer, the financial equation has now changed. It now makes sense for the employer to take you back onto their books, because they'll be receiving this $1,500 a fortnight for their employee, and that will really help maintain that important relationship.
So clarify this and just correct me if it's different. It applies to full and part-time workers and casuals who'd been with the employer 12 months or more. Is that correct?
That's correct, and also to sole traders, and it also applies for not-for-profit organisations, because we know they're also big employers across the community.
Okay. So could employers ring around tonight and get their staff back on the books by the morning?
Well, what they can do is certainly make those arrangements, but they can also register their interest in this scheme with the Australian Tax Office. The Australian Tax Office has already put up on their website the facility to do that, and as I'm just informed prior to coming to air, already 8,000 registrations have been made on that tax office in the first hour alone. So there's a great deal of interest out there in the community. People recognise the trying times that we're in, but they also know that their government, the Morrison government, has their back and will continue to do what it takes, spend the money as required to support them and the business community at this time.
Josh, I quickly called one of the big hospitality employers. They let go 3,000 staff a week or so ago. Now, they applaud the JobKeeper program, but they said they have zero cash flow, nothing coming in right now after a complete shutdown of their business. So to carry wages from now until the start of May, when these payments will begin, they say it's a stretch. What do you say to that?
Well, there'll be a number of businesses, simply because of the health related restrictions that have been put in place, that you can't have social gatherings, will mean those businesses can't reopen their doors. So in those cases, they would have stood down the workers, and this $1,500 payment will help provide that relief for those workers and keep them attached to their employer. So for the hospitality sector and for the retail sector and the tourism sector, this will really be important for them.
But if they can't do any trade for the next 6 weeks and they've got no money coming in, how do they pay until your payments, the JobKeeper program, kicks in?
Well, in terms of those circumstances, those employers will see their bank, because they will know from the Australian Tax Office and from their registration of interest, and obviously they've got a turnover that has been reduced by 30% or more, making themselves eligible. They will know they will have a bankable commitment, and their bank will provide them with that support.
And for employers, and we would desperately hope this is not the case, but for employers not acting properly here, how is this actually going to be policed, that they're being true and honest about the staff that they're forwarding this money to keep them in their jobs?
Well, Michael, you can rest assured that the Australian Tax Office is pretty good at putting in place the measures necessary to police those payments, and they will obviously be doing so. And anyone who breaks the law here will face the full force of the law.
Yeah.
It's
This is called the
taxpayers' money.
JobKeeper?
It's taxpayers' money after all, and we must be very careful with that.
No, spot on. Look, this is called the JobKeeper program. There's also the boosted job seeker payment. Can you clarify, do you get to claim both?
Well, in this circumstance, the JobKeeper payment is different to the job seeker payment. This is where the formal relationship is between the employer and the employee. There will be some people who, for example, are casuals but haven't been with an employer for a year or more. Those people will be receiving the job seeker payment as well as the coronavirus supplement.
And on the job seeker component, you announced today that the threshold for the partner's wage has been significantly increased. Just explain that.
Well, as you know, previous requirements were that you weren't eligible to receive those payments if your partner was earning $48,000 or more. That's now been lifted very substantially to nearly $80,000, and of course that means there's more flexibility for the family to be able to receive that welfare support while one of the family members is still working.
All right, Treasurer, it's a huge package and I think it's a relief to a lot of people. Thank you for joining us the latest again this evening.
Always good to be with you and your viewers, and we'll get through this together.